Across the vast landscapes of our planet, there are places that time seems to have forgotten. They are towns and villages where life once thrived, filled with the sounds of industry, the laughter of children, and the daily rhythm of human existence. Now, they stand silent. These are the ghost towns, scattered across deserts, nestled in mountains, and hidden in remote valleys. They are monuments to dreams that have faded and communities that have vanished. What happened here? Where did all the people go? These are the questions that hang in the still air, carried on the wind that whistles through broken window panes and empty doorways. To truly understand a ghost town, we must listen to the echoes of what once was. Consider the mining boom towns of the American West, where dusty streets once bustled with fortune seekers, merchants, and families, all drawn by the promise of a better life buried deep within the earth. Archival photographs and old film reels show us these towns in their prime. When we compare these images to the present-day reality, the contrast is stark and deeply emotional. The objects left behind are perhaps the most personal and poignant storytellers, connecting us directly to the people who lived here, loved here, and worked here. Our journey begins in the vast, sun-scorched deserts and rugged mountains where the earth holds a glittering promise. It is a promise of gold, silver, and unimaginable wealth. This promise sparked some of the most dramatic migrations in human history. Towns sprang up almost overnight, built from little more than raw timber, canvas, and sheer determination. These were the boom towns, symbols of hope and ambition, their populations swelling with every new rumor of a discovery. These settlements were often chaotic and raw, teetering on the edge of lawlessness. Miners descended deep into the earth, chasing veins of precious ore through treacherous tunnels. Above ground, a whole new society was being forged. Yet, this promise was often a fragile one. The very foundation of these towns was finite. Life in a mining boomtown was a relentless cycle of hard work and fleeting moments of relief. For the miners, the day began before sunrise. They would descend into the dark, cramped, and dangerous shafts, their world illuminated only by the faint glow of a candle or carbide lamp. Above ground, the town was a hive of activity. Blacksmiths worked tirelessly, their hammers ringing out as they sharpened drill bits and repaired machinery. The saloons were the social heart of the community, places where miners could wash away the dust and fatigue with whiskey, play cards, and share stories. As the towns grew, they began to resemble more permanent communities. Families arrived, bringing with them a desire for stability and a semblance of civilized life. Schools were built, and the laughter of children playing in the dusty streets provided a stark contrast to the grim work happening underground. The end for a mining town often came as suddenly as its beginning. The lifeblood of the community was the ore, and when the veins of gold and silver began to thin, a creeping anxiety would spread through the streets. The easy riches were gone, and extracting what was left became more difficult and expensive. The process of abandonment was not usually a single dramatic event, but a slow, painful decline. It began with a trickle of departures. Then a small business, seeing its customer base shrink, would close its doors for good. The departure of one family or one business would create a ripple effect. The school would have fewer students, the church would have a smaller congregation, and the once bustling Main Street would start to have empty storefronts. Eventually, the last residents would leave, turning the key in their doors for the final time. The town was officially surrendered to the elements. Not all ghost towns are born from the pursuit of wealth. Some are created by a far more brutal force, human conflict. Across history, war has been a relentless architect of abandonment. When armies march and battles rage, entire communities are caught in the crossfire. The reasons for their emptiness are not economic decline, but fear, violence, and forced displacement. The towns left behind by war are uniquely haunting. They are not just empty, they are wounded. The evidence of violence is etched into every surface. The twisted skeletons of burned-out vehicles litter the streets. Buildings stand as hollowed-out shells, their roofs and walls blasted away by explosions. Oradour-sur-Glane in France, left as a permanent memorial to a World War II massacre, is one such place. Its ruins are preserved exactly as they were left, a stark and permanent reminder of the horrors of war. These places serve as solemn memorials, their very existence a powerful plea for peace. The process of abandonment during a conflict is one of pure survival. It is driven by the most primal human instinct, the need to protect oneself and one's family from harm. The evacuation is often a chaotic and heartbreaking exodus. Meals are left half-eaten on tables, beds are left unmade, and toys are scattered on the floor. Consider the story of Varosha, a suburb of Famagusta in Cyprus. Once a glamorous and bustling tourist resort, it became a ghost town overnight during the 1974 Turkish invasion. Cars from 1974 still sit in dealership showrooms, and window displays are filled with fashions that are now relics of a bygone era. For those who flee, the hope of return can be a powerful, life-sustaining force. They carry the memory of their homes with them, but as years turn into decades, that hope can begin to fade, replaced by a deep and enduring sense of loss. Long after the guns fall silent and the soldiers depart, the ghost towns of war remain prisoners of the past. The silence that descends is not a peaceful one. It fills the empty schools where children no longer learn, the abandoned churches where congregations no longer pray, and the town squares where communities no longer gather. Nature's reclamation of these places is different from that in a mining town. Here, it feels less like a gentle healing, and more like an attempt to cover up a terrible wound. Wildflowers sprout from the rubble of bombed-out buildings, their delicate beauty a stark and poignant contrast to the destruction around them. These towns often become political and emotional battlegrounds long after the physical fighting has stopped. They can be sealed off as military zones, their access restricted for decades. Ultimately, the ghost towns of war serve as humanity's most powerful and sobering classrooms. They stand as enduring warnings, physical manifestations of what happens when diplomacy fails. Sometimes the force that empties a town is not human ambition or conflict, but the raw, unpredictable power of the planet itself. A volcano that has slumbered for centuries can awaken with a deafening roar. An earthquake can shatter the very ground beneath a city in a matter of seconds, leaving behind a landscape of ruin. Consider the town of Plymouth on the Caribbean island of Montserrat. For centuries, it was a bustling capital, its colorful colonial buildings nestled at the base of the Soufriere Hills volcano. In 1995, the volcano awoke from its long sleep. A series of eruptions over the next 2 years smothered the town in a thick, concrete-like blanket of pyroclastic flows and mud. Today, Plymouth is a modern-day Pompeii, a silent, gray world where rooftops and church spires poke through the hardened ash like tombstones, marking a city lost to the earth's fury. These places are profoundly different from other ghost towns. The cause of their emptiness is not a human failing, but a geological or meteorological event. There is another kind of disaster, one born from human ingenuity turned against itself. This disaster creates ghost towns of a particularly eerie and unsettling kind. The enemy here is invisible, silent, and deadly. It is radiation. The story of Pripyat, near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, is the most famous and chilling example. It was a young, modern, and prosperous city, built to house the plant's workers and their families. It had schools, hospitals, swimming pools, and an amusement park. On April 26, 1986, an explosion at the plant released a massive cloud of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The residents of Pripyat were told to evacuate the next day, informed it would only be for a few days. They left with little more than their documents, leaving behind a city that was, in a single moment, frozen in time. The ghost towns created by nuclear accidents are surreal and profoundly disturbing. Schoolrooms are filled with open textbooks and drawings left on desks. The famous Pripyat amusement park, which was due to open just days after the disaster, stands as a particularly haunting symbol. Its Ferris wheel and bumper cars have never known the laughter of children. The human stories connected to these disaster zones are filled with a particular kind of grief. For the former residents of places like Pripyat or the area around Fukushima in Japan, the loss is twofold. They lost their homes, their community, and their way of life in an instant. But they also lost their connection to a place that is now forbidden, a home they can never safely return to. Over the years, nature has begun its slow, inexorable reclamation of these exclusion zones. But here, the process has a strange and otherworldly quality. Herds of Przewalski's horses, a rare and endangered species, graze peacefully in the overgrown town squares. The absence of humanity has inadvertently created one of Europe's largest wildlife sanctuaries. For the evacuees, the desire to see their homes one last time can be overwhelming. Some are occasionally granted brief, supervised visits. Dressed in protective gear, they walk through the silent streets of their youth. The belongings left behind, a doll on a bed, a newspaper on a table, are not just objects. They are echoes of lives interrupted, silent witnesses to the moment everything changed. In every abandoned place, a silent and relentless process begins the moment the last human departs. It is the slow, steady reclamation by nature. It starts subtly. A single, stubborn weed pushes its way through a crack in a paved street. A delicate strand of ivy begins its patient ascent up the side of a brick wall. These are the first pioneers in a great green tide that will eventually transform the entire landscape. Over years and decades, this gentle advance becomes an unstoppable force. The roots of saplings, seeking nourishment deep in the soil, exert a powerful pressure. Entire buildings are slowly consumed, their sharp, man-made lines softened and blurred by a cascade of leaves and vines. The once clear boundaries between human construction and the natural world dissolve. This reclamation follows different patterns depending on the environment. In the arid deserts, hardy desert scrub slowly encroaches. In the humid tropics, the reclamation is a riot of life. The sounds of the town change as well. The clang of industry and the chatter of human voices are replaced by a new symphony. The wind rustles through the leaves of trees that now stand where a bustling market once was. The creak of a swinging door is accompanied by the chirping of birds nesting in the rafters of an old church. The silence is no longer empty. It is filled with the subtle, constant sounds of life and growth. As nature reclaims the physical structures, a new community of residents moves in to replace the departed humans. This is a community governed not by laws and commerce, but by instinct and the cycles of the wild. The abandoned buildings, once homes and workplaces, are repurposed into shelters and dens. A hollowed-out schoolhouse becomes a refuge for a herd of deer seeking protection from a storm. In the Chernobyl exclusion zone, an area devoid of people for decades, this transformation is astonishingly clear. Packs of wolves, a species long absent from the region, now roam freely through the deserted city of Pripyat. Herds of Przewalski's horses, a rare and endangered species, graze peacefully in the overgrown town squares. The absence of humanity has inadvertently created one of Europe's largest wildlife sanctuaries. This return of animal life brings a new vitality to the ghost towns. Seeing a bird build its nest on a rusted piece of machinery shifts the narrative from one of pure loss to one of transformation and continuity. Life in a different form has found a way to thrive amidst the ruins, creating a complex and functioning ecosystem where our world once stood. These new inhabitants are the new custodians of these forgotten places, the living heart of a new wilderness. There is a profound and haunting beauty to be found in these scenes of natural reclamation. It is a beauty that arises from the contrast between the rigid, decaying lines of human architecture and the soft, persistent growth of the natural world. A single, vibrant red poppy growing from the cracked floor of a gray concrete factory is a powerful image of resilience. This process offers a powerful lesson about impermanence. The ghost towns show us that nothing we build is truly permanent. Our greatest cities and proudest monuments are, on a geological timescale, fleeting creations. Nature will always be waiting patiently to reclaim what we have borrowed from it. This is not a pessimistic or frightening thought, but a humbling one. In this beauty, we can also find a glimmer of hope. The green shoots pushing through the rubble are a promise of renewal. They remind us that even after the greatest tragedies, life continues. The quiet return of birds, foxes, and deer is a sign that balance can eventually be restored. It suggests that the earth has a remarkable capacity to heal its wounds, even the ones we inflict upon it. Ultimately, the ghost town reclaimed by nature is a place of complex emotions. It is a memorial to what has been lost, a classroom on the power of nature, and a canvas for a unique and evolving beauty. These silent, overgrown places are not just about endings. They are also about new beginnings. They are a poignant and powerful reminder that while human stories may fade and our structures may crumble, the great overarching story of life on Earth will always and unstoppably continue. Our journey through the silent worlds of ghost towns is now drawing to a close. We have walked the dusty streets of mining boomtowns, monuments to dreams of wealth that glittered brightly before fading into dust. We have stood in the haunting stillness of villages scarred by war, their walls pockmarked with violence and their silence heavy with loss. These towns may be silent, but they are not without a voice. Their stories echo in the wind that whistles through broken windows and in the creak of a rusty swing set moving without a child. They speak to us through the objects left behind, a faded photograph on a wall, a child's forgotten toy in a corner, or a set of tools left on a workbench, waiting for a craftsman who will never return. The ghost town is a place of powerful symbolism. It is a church with no congregation, a school with no students, and a train track that now leads to nowhere. These images force us to confront the impermanence of our own world. The bustling cities and vibrant communities we inhabit today are not immune to the forces of change that emptied these forgotten places. From the deserts of Namibia to the mountains of Colorado, from the battlefields of France to the exclusion zone of Chernobyl, the narrative is strikingly similar. A community thrives, a sudden change occurs, and the people leave. What remains is a landscape of memory, a physical record of both human resilience and human vulnerability. They are the final, quiet resting places of countless human dramas, their echoes waiting patiently for anyone willing to stop and listen to their silent tales. What, then, can we learn from this journey into silence and decay? The most immediate lesson is one of humility. Ghost towns remind us that despite our technological prowess and our ability to shape the environment, we are not invincible. A change in the market, a shift in the political climate, or a tremor from the earth beneath our feet can unravel our most carefully laid plans. Yet, amidst the melancholy and decay, there is also a profound message of resilience. The sight of a tree growing through the floor of a factory or a wildflower blooming in the rubble of a war-torn home is a powerful symbol of hope. Even in the most toxic and tragic of landscapes, like the Chernobyl exclusion zone, life finds a way to return and flourish. This natural reclamation is a quiet but persistent promise that even after the worst of endings, there can be new beginnings. These forgotten places also underscore the immense power of human memory. As long as a story is told, a place is never truly lost. The historians who dedicate their lives to documenting these towns are the keepers of the flame. They prove that a town is more than just a collection of buildings. It is a web of human stories, and that spirit can endure long after the physical structures have crumbled into dust. In the end, ghost towns are mirrors. They reflect our past, our present, and our possible futures. They challenge us to consider what we value, what we build, and what we might one day leave behind. These towns may be silent, but their stories still echo, reminding us that even in the most desolate of places, there are profound truths to be found about what it means to be human on this ever-changing planet. These towns may be silent, but their stories still echo. Subscribe to Kendu Global Files for more journeys into the past and present of our world.